What's going on, guys? Martial Breakdowns here. Today I'm going to be breaking down some of the takedowns and scrambling ability of UFC fighter Gregor Gillespie. Gillespie's a 2007 D1 NCAA champion and a 4-time All-American. In this video, we're going to be breaking down his most recent fight with Carlos Ferreira, a third-degree black belt in Jiu-Jitsu and a no-gi world silver medalist. We'll get to see a lot of the advanced interplay between wrestling and jiu-jitsu on the mat. Before we get started though, if you take something away from this video and you want to see more breakdowns of wrestling, MMA, and jiu-jitsu, please give this video a thumbs up and hit subscribe so you can stay up to date with all my future uploads. Now, let's get into it. The first takedown of the fight, we see Gregor enter on a head inside single. He times it beautifully by timing Ferreira's shift, shooting just as he takes his first step into orthodox. For the finish, he drops his inside hand to the ankle, takes a back step with his inside leg to clear space to lift the leg to the armpit. Instead of letting him kick the leg out, Ferreira turns down and allows Gregor to climb to the upper body. As Gregor tries to lift and trip him to the mat, Ferreira dives underneath, trying to secure a reverse ashigarami. Check out the awareness of Gregor here, as he pulls his heel to his butt, hooking it on the outside of Ferreira's inside leg, keeping him from securing that inside foot position he needs to start employing leg locks. Ferreira recaptures Gregor's leg and wrestles up while also threatening the toe hold. Ferreira uses his rear leg to trip Gregor to the mat, where he immediately bounces up and tries to slide around the corner. When Ferreira lets go of the leg with one hand to reach back and stop Gregor from taking the back, Gregor backs out and sprawls before disengaging. In this next sequence, we see Gregor in again on a single leg, but Ferreira does a good job of stuffing the head and disrupting it by throwing short strikes to the face, while defending by limp legging and sliding down and away. Gregor keeps the pressure on, and watch this beautiful setup. As he drops his level, he feints the overhand right, which Ferreira bites on and reacts to. Notice, from Ferreira's point of view, this entry looks the exact same as Gregor's previous single leg entries. This time though, Gregor takes his head all the way across for a double leg. Because Ferreira defends it as a single instead of a double, where he can meet him with his hips and stuff Gregor's head to the opposite side, Gregor is able to drive him to the ground by the fence. Ferreira slides his knee next to the fence to prevent Gregor from controlling it, forcing him to fight at the ankle. While Gregor's busy trying to trap the far ankle, Ferreira slides out, forcing Gregor to try and snag the other leg, where he transitions to a high crotch, and here's where he gets into some trouble. In MMA and Jiu-Jitsu, it's extremely important to keep cutting the corner at all times on your high crotch to maintain dominant angle on your opponent. If a defending opponent cuts the corner on you, like Ferreira does here, it leaves them in a position to secure a back crucifix, where both your hands are trapped and your opponent has a free arm to choke or strike you with. Gregor's able to free his wrist by extending the arm and rotating his wrist out of Ferreira's grip. He immediately turns to face Ferreira and in limp arms to free himself of Ferreira's lock over his shoulder. Now, watch how as Gregor pulls his head away to prevent Ferreira from quickly pummeling his leg in for a triangle, Ferreira turns his hips and locks the omoplata before immediately locking in Gregor's crotch to set up the sweep. Watch here how as Ferreira hits the sweep, Gregor floats his hips to keep him on top of Ferreira. The only thing that keeps Ferreira from being mounted here is his hand posting in Gregor's shin, which he then uses to create space to pop out the back door. After a few single leg attempts from Gregor, which Ferreira defends, we see Gregor finish by going low and gripping the heel, using his head on the inside of Ferreira's thigh as a fulcrum and circling him down to the mat. As Ferreira tries to pop out the back door, Gregor stalls him with a leg cradle straight out of folk style wrestling. From here, Gregor creates a scramble and the two battle for hip height. Ferreira brings his level up and Gregor uses his elbow to create space and pop out the back door and is back in on a high crotch. Now, Ferreira has a nice attempt at a Kimura counter, but ultimately Gregor hits a forward roll, slips his elbow out in the space created, and comes out on top. At a certain point, Ferreira gives up the Kimura and realizes he needs to get back to his feet. He creates space and turns belly down to stand up, and this is where he really gets into trouble. Folk-style wrestling has a lot of emphasis on keeping your opponent down and preventing the stand-up. By resorting to a wrestling-style stand-up, he's playing right into Gregor's game. Ferreira attempts to roll to create a scramble, but Gregor keeps his hips glued to him. He turns to his back and attempts to sweep from 3/4 mount bottom. Instead of keeping the scoop grip on Gregor's free leg though, he opts to turn it into a single leg attempt, as Gregor follows the turn with his hips, and it ultimately costs him the position. Gregor takes the back and begins raining down strikes as Ferreira tries to clear the legs. Eventually, he turns to his butt and is able to clear the bottom hook, but Gregor is still unloading. As Ferreira reaches for an underhook in one last attempt to escape, he leaves an opening for Gregor to pass the full mount, where he eventually gives up his back and Gregor gets the TKO. Now, we covered a lot of in-depth scrambles and situations there, showing how Gregor was able to utilize his wrestling in combination with strikes and sound submission defense to outmaneuver Ferreira. What can we take away from this? First was Gregor's beautiful setups on the feet, utilizing feints and interchanging between head inside single and double leg while using the same entry to keep his opponent guessing. Combining this with his relentless pressure, attacking and reattacking when a takedown fails, and Gregor was able to keep Ferreira backing up and avoiding the takedown for most of the fight. Next is his situational awareness and patience. Gregor's refined his submission defense enough to not panic when put in a dangerous situation. Whether he's patiently waiting before using Ferreira's omoplata sweep to float his hips on top, or camping and striking from a knee slice position until Ferreira attempted the underhook to pass him out, Gregor doesn't just rush his way toward passes. He patiently waits and creates opening to advance while maintaining his current level of control through balance and limb trapping. Lastly, rather than turning it into a jiu-jitsu battle, he used his submission defense and positional awareness to allow him to open up his wrestling. Instead of sitting back and playing half guard or looking for a submission against a more decorated submission grappler, we saw him utilizing techniques like the leg cradle, putting his high-level takedown defense and scrambling to action, out the backdoor transition to a high crotch, parallel leg rides, and much more. That's all for this video, guys. If you took something away from this, please be sure to like, comment, and share. It helps the channel a lot. I know there was a lot of technical stuff in this breakdown, but I thought it'd be cool to take a closer look at the exchanges that ended up winning Gregor the fight against a very tough submission grappler. Let me know in the comments below if you want to see more videos like this covering exchanges on the ground, or if you'd rather see more takedown and defense-oriented content. As always though, guys, thanks for watching, and good luck training.